or they don't have a mortgage, there's no mandate for them to buy flood insurance.
No, I'm talking about, let's say if I can afford the flood insurance and I don't want to do the 100,000 elevation, so am I obliged to do the elevation if I can afford the insurance?
No.
Okay, good.
Yeah, the only reason to do it is to lower the flood insurance and lower the damage, right?
It's a mitigation.
I mean, I talk about everything in terms of cost, but there's a real damage issue behind it. So, all right, grandfathering, anything else on grandfathering? No. Okay. You know, I wanted to, in terms of sort of the doom and gloom here, I just wanted to throw out that I've done estimates for a lot of clients who are capping out at like $3,000, $4,000. So everybody's not, you know, looking at the $7,000, $8,000, $9,000. In some cases, it's going to be not that bad. But you'll start to see that as you start, you know, working with more clients. But for a lot of people, it's definitely going to be bad. Okay, so newly mapped, again, just to summarize newly mapped, it's for some people, there's a possibility of getting flood insurance after the maps change. The newly mapped rate, it will step up until it reaches the standard rate, and FEMA has spoken out of both sides of their mouth about whether they mean the standard rate for the zone that they used to be in or the standard rate for the zone that they are in. The latest I heard is that it's the standard rate for the former zone and BFE, but that's not what the manual says, so we don't know. So that's still an open question. All right, subsidies. That's the entire universe of available subsidies. Now let's talk about rates. These are the X-zone rates. These are the best that your clients can hope for rates. And if you'll see, they're pretty bad. So the columns are based on the level of coverage. So this is a full policy is $250,000 for the building and $100,000 for the contents. For those clients who are going to have to drop contents coverage to keep affordability, if they've got a mortgage, you know, I dropped it down to 250 building only, no comment, contents 200 building only, and then like 60,000 building only for people who have like a really low mortgage or who didn't have much damage and feel like, you know, they want to risk that the next storm, you know, won't be as bad as Sandy or something. So these are the various premiums. Full coverage is what we'll talk about, but again, when you're counseling clients, you're going to think about all these different options. The first thing you're going to plug in is what is their unpaid principal balance on their mortgage, because that for most people is going to be the top, or the bottom, I'm sorry, the minimum amount of coverage they can get. All right, so the standard X-zone rates, mitigation doesn't have much effect on these, right? If you look at a policy with no basement, it costs $2,200. A policy with a basement costs $2,600. So if you fill in your basement, you're going to save $400 a year, which may not be worth the loss of that space in the X-zone. With enclosure, again, means that it's one of these elevated structures that has parking or storage on the first floor, parking or storage only on the first floor. It's $2,800, and with a crawl space is $2,200. So the X-zone rates are not anything to shake a stick at, but for a lot of the X-zone people, they're going to qualify for the preferred risk policy. Does anybody remember how you get this? The first test of the day. How do you get the preferred risk policy? Anybody remember? Who qualifies? Beth can't answer. No, preferred risk. That's the one where you can only have one claim or payment over $1,000. So again, if you from Sandy, from a combination of FEMA and flood insurance and SBA and Build It Back, you got like $500,000 investment in your home. One claim, you're still eligible for preferred risk. If we have another storm and you have minor damage and you get played over $1,000, you've lost preferred risk, and then you're in this table. This is where you are. For a lot of people, there was Irene and then there was people lost the preferred rate and suddenly found themselves in this world and didn't really understand why. But that's why if they had Irene plus Sandy, that's 2 storms, 2 payments. The payments apply to separate storms, so you can get a lot of different payments for Sandy. It's 1 storm. Okay, so again, X-zone people, preferred risk rate, or this is what they're looking at. Again, I should warn you, these calculations I did 2 rate tables ago. The rates have gone up somewhat since then. Not significantly here, but again, these are older rates. Just because I didn't want to redo all this, it was hours and hours of calculations. All right, the AE zone. The AE zone is where you're going to see your mitigation really make a difference, because when you get to AE and then also VE is when your rating is going to be based on your elevation above sea level, right? In X, all they care about is, do you have a basement, do you have a crawl space, you know, is it 2 stories or 1 story? It's pretty stock features. AE is when elevation comes into play. And again, it's going to matter if it's 1 story or more than 1 story. It's going to matter whether it's 1 family or more than 1 family in some different circumstances. And the feature of whether there's a basement, so the first 2 are no basement, 1 story, no basement, 2 or more stories, with basement, cellar, crawl space, or enclosure, 2 or more stories. And then you get into, under this category, you get into where the location of the machinery is once you get into lower elevations. So at +4, that's as good as you can get. That's 4 feet above the base flood elevation. +4 and above, you're paying these low rates. +1, again, and the rating goes foot by foot by foot. So you're going to be rounding off to the closest foot. I've skipped some things here just to, you know, simplify the table. So +3 is going to be a little worse. +2 will be a little more expensive. +1, you're looking at 2,000. Again, that's for full coverage. This is $200,000 in building coverage only. It's going to be $761. $60,000 in building only coverage. You know, goes down to, what is that? 600. 600. So that's at +1. 0, it's getting a little worse, -1 elevation. This is compared to the base flood elevation requirement, right? So if your base flood elevation is 10 feet and your first floor is 9 feet above ground, you're at -1. It's starting to look pretty bad. And again, this is because you got no basement. If you've got a basement, they take into account in the rating that a lot of that is space that they're not going to cover because flood insurance doesn't cover much damage to a basement. So the rates are going to look different. But if this is slab on grade, these 2 are slab on grade houses, even -1 is a big hit. -2, you're up to 7,000. -6, you're up to 16,000. I stopped the table there. Tables go up to -13. It just gets worse and worse and worse.
So Meg, if the building, you're covering 250,000, and I know it's something, so you're talking about replacement costs, so say it costs 400,000 to, so that means that your premium is going to be twice as much. It depends upon the coverage. So
You can't buy any more than 250,000.
You can't buy any more. Okay.
Yeah, that's the maximum policy.
Okay.
And as you say, it costs more than that for most
Okay.
people to rebuild their houses.
Okay.
But that's the maximum you can get.
Okay.
Anybody who wants to insure above that has to go on the private market and buy supplemental flood insurance. And, you know, they are sold. And actually, we had clients after Sandy who bought supplemental coverage, believe it or not. But anyway, yeah, so this is the maximum policy you can buy, $250,000 coverage for the building and $100,000 for contents. Okay, so -6, it's already just off the charts, and you know it gets worse from there. So again, if it's 2 or more stories, the premiums are lower. Again, because I guess the expectation is that there'll be less damage because you can move stuff above. I don't know. -6, but you're still looking at 11,000. You can reduce it down to 7,000. A lot of your clients are going to be worse than -6. So the fact that the table ends here is just a matter of space and horror. All right, so with a basement at +4, let's go down to something. So with a basement at -4, with machinery in the basement, you're looking at 3,800. So again, like that's a big difference, right? If, where is -4? I don't have -4, I have -5. No basement at -6 is 11,000, at -2 is 4,000. With a basement at -4 is 3,800, right? So again, your basement, in some ways it protects you from the premiums, but that's because you've just dropped your elevation measurement, several feet below ground, right? So your clients with basements are gonna have worse elevations, even though the premiums, just looking at this table, it looks like it's cheaper to have a basement, but that's deceptive. At -8, is that what that is? -8, no machine, let's say, no machinery in it, it's 5,400. I just calculated rates for a client at -10 in an AE zone, and he's looking at $8,000 premium. So if it gets worse, I just cut the table off there. So that's what AE zone premiums look like, and that's why, if you're moving into an AE zone, you want to try to grandfather into the X zone, or grandfather into the old BFE, because if your BFE increases by 3 feet from the current to the future maps, you just dropped yourself from potentially 0 to -3, or +1 to -2, difference of $900 and $4,400. Okay, now the VE zone. I included very little because the premiums very quickly get to be just beyond the realm of what's believable. So at -1, there's a house that's only 1 foot below base flood elevation in a VE zone. Full coverage is going to cost $22,000. So, if you're -3, just kind of imagine what that's going to look like. It's
22.
There's practically nothing in the VE zone, that's where the wave action is. And basically, you're looking at stuff that's already on piers. We don't build in the VE zone.
Yeah, we had a client in Staten Island though who was a slab on grade house in a VE zone. But actually he was under the preliminary terms, he was getting mapped into an X zone, believe it or not. It was, I don't know how that works, but that was, some guardian angel.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, VE zone rates are very bad, but there are not that many of them. If you have to give somebody flood insurance counseling, if you have a client in a VE zone, please call me, because these tools are not going to help you. The way that VE zone properties are rated, it's very technical and very complicated. So you can't use these tools basically, but so this is just included
You have to
as
take into account some structural strengths of the building, because we're talking about wave action, not just rise water. VE gets very complicated.
yeah.
And Mark,
Yeah.
Meg, on the, in terms of reducing the amount of coverage that people are going to take in order to save on the premium, there's an impact if you go below the $250,000 and/or replacement cost of your house. Okay, you don't get full coverage if you don't buy full coverage. And most lenders, again, if your mortgage is less, you can submit a policy with less coverage. You can submit, if your mortgage is only $168, you can buy flood for $168. But then that's going to have an impact on what you get at time of loss. It's going to be actuarialized. Okay. But again, the juggling of whether or not that premium is going to be payable or not may depend on that. If the mortgage is over $250,000, your lender will require the full $250,000. Okay? But only once the MAP requires the flood insurance to be purchased. Up until that point, you can get, your rates for the current MAP will be much less, and you can get less coverage. You want to cover the FEMA the maximum grant from FEMA was 32,000, so you really have to start somewhere around 50,000. If you look at the purchase rate, because you have to cover the FEMA match if they got one dime of FEMA money. And if you can get them into preferred risk rate policy now, before the map changes, it would be hugely to their advantage. But
Under the newly mapped procedure, it's under grandfathering, you don't step up from the PRP, you step up from the standard X. But, yeah. The issues Beth was talking about in terms of having 80% coverage are covered in an additional manual that I'm going to give you the next time, so you have that level of detail. And then we'll also go over what are the minimum coverage requirements based on what the client has received. And that information is already up on floodhelpny2.org. Go ahead.
I was looking at technically Breezy Point is considered clean. They're just in the water. I was just looking at it on the map, they're just in the water, that's 11697.
Yeah.
That's the AE zone, obviously, today, but.
Yeah, I was
what
actually
will it
shocked
be?
that wasn't a VE zone.
Right, what will that be? That's like, it's a VE, obviously probably on the new map, but what would, they're in the water,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, they're on those little strips of like landfill
Yeah,
or
that's
dugout or
it,
something.
that's it,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Some of the coastal homes, it's hard to
No, I went there, but I'm just saying, that was a while ago, and I'm looking at it on the map, and based on this zip code, that we might have to touch and deal with.
Yeah.
Our beach. They're in the water, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you think it's possible that where some communities could, I guess, not be at the risk that the new pre-firms we're going to put them at, that other communities could be at a higher risk, like Breezy?
Yeah. So will some communities get better and some get worse? I think that's probably likely. So when we were working on Flood Help NY, we were trying to make sure that it covered all the possible scenarios from like staying in AE, going from this zone to that zone. We had assumed that nobody was going from a bad zone into a better zone, but this one client in Staten Island was, and then we discovered that, there are people that are moving in and out of zones. Those are mostly around the margins, people moving out of higher risk into lower risk or into no zones. There are people jumping zones who are moving from no zone into the AE, skipping over the moderate zone altogether. But I think those are mostly outliers. For most people, I think it will get worse. But maybe not as worse as it would have 2 days ago.
So basically, the best peril would probably be the Bronx, in a sense.
The Bronx.
You know what I learned about the Bronx?
The highest house elevation of the
The
borough.
Bronx
It's the
would probably
highest-
be the best place to buy right about.
So in the Bronx, there's something called,
Hunts Point.
Hunts Point.
Hunts Point, yeah.
But 40% of our food is subject to flood.
there's something called wave run-up, which was something that I just learned about from Andy Martin at FEMA, which it happens in the Bronx because you can have these people way up at the top of a cliff who are in a high-risk zone because something to do with physics. When a wave comes, hits against that cliff, it's going to run up the cliff and then somehow change its direction and bash those homes in a way that I didn't think was possible when you sent me a photograph of it happening.
Wait. You said the wave will run up the cliff.
Yeah, I can show you a
You know
picture.
what?
of
No,
this.
literally,
I'm doing that in New York.
the cliff is like this,
Yeah.
and then let's say it's not a sheer cliff, there's a boulder or something like this. So the wave runs up, it hits the boulder, that water finds its own level.
Right.
This is a new level. The next wave behind it builds on that.
Yep.
That wave behind that comes and it stacks. And then as soon as it reaches that lip,
Climbing
then
level.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the splash indicates the cliff goes in
Yep.
many directions.
Yes.
I thought I knew
Anyway.
all about water when I took a shower.
It's not really.
All right, can you say you're from Staten Island though?
Yeah.
There's, so look for the glacial moraine, okay? There's a glacial
I'm
moraine
in
that
the West
runs.
Brighton area. The Midland area is about 3 miles from where I'm at.
Yeah.
I'm in like the Clove Lake, so I'm in a high
Yeah,
area.
so you're on the glacial moraine,
on-
right? It runs through
right.
Staten Island and Brooklyn and then parts of Queens.
Right.
Just go there, that's where you want to be because it's the highest ground.
Where's the caravan?
Todd
Go back
Hill
to
is the
Glacier.
highest point on the east coast of Littoral.
Who?
Todd Hill. in
Yes,
Staten Island.
so that,
Okay?
yeah, yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
want to hit the high ground on the east coast, that's where you go.
Yeah, but they're rich.
That's next, they're white.
No, I didn't say that.
We're so amazed. Guess we got the high ground.
So, you know, it seems like with this amount of time left, I'm kind of loath to start on a new topic. So the next thing we were going to do is start applying these principles to take a house and measure. I mean, I could do that for 10 minutes just to run through sort of how it works, or if you guys have questions.
There's one other thing I want to point out on the paperwork here. This declaration page from FEMA, okay? You're going to see a lot of variations of this.
Right.
Because the flood program, although it is all National Flood Insurance Program, the way it's structured is companies can ask for and be certified to be what they call write your own, which means you don't write your own, the company writes their own. And they will produce a declaration page that says Allstate or some other company, and it will be in a slightly different format, okay? And you may not see this breakout of the premium, okay?
But it's there. You just gotta look for it.
No, you will not see this breakout of the
Gotcha.
premium.
Gotcha.
You'll see a lump sum, and sometimes you have to really look hard to see if the HIFIA surcharge is correct. See, this one is $250.
Right.
Like I said, it says it's not a primary residence. Also, the $250 goes on to the two-family home.
Gotcha.
Okay? So you may not see this exact format.
Gotcha.
Okay, but no matter who produces it, it is a national flood insurance program, structured the same way, same parameters, same rates. In theory, apples in should be apples out. There shouldn't be, nobody should have to shop for flood insurance. The reality of that is the professional agents who are writing these policies, the mayor's office did beta testing, and they now say, shop 3 different agents and pick the lowest premium. Basically, that's saying that 2/3 of the agents are doing them wrong. Okay? And the lowest premium is not necessarily the correct premium. Okay? So, it's.
Okay. So let's run through how you're going to apply these concepts just really quick, and then we're going to do more of this demoing at the next session. But if you turn to page 18 of the Advocate's Guide, so this guide was written to help people do this off the build-back measurements. You know, with your RTAPP clients, you're going to have these, but I'm sure some of you have build-back clients as well. So I'll show you how this is going to connect up. But for now, we're going to use the measurements that we can get out of the build-back program to start putting together a picture of how to rate a house. So page 18 here is the feasibility report from the build-back program for this address. I think this is in Brooklyn, I'm not sure.
It says Staten Island.
It says Staten Island? Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, so it says Staten Island, it says it was built 1925. That's relevant because why?
It was for me.
Pre-firm. Yep. So it's a pre-firm house, it's eligible for that subsidy. It has a cellar. The flood hazard zone is AE. Again, these are the future zones, because Build It Back is building the future zones, but we'll use them for our purposes. AE is the zone. The base flood elevation is 12 feet. The LAG, which is the lowest adjacent grade, that's ground level, right? Is 8.97 feet. And the measured FFAG, that's
First
the,
floor above ground.
right. First floor above ground is 2 feet. All right, so now let's think about what this house looks like. You know, I actually, every time I do a rate calculation, I draw a picture because it can prevent you from making stupid mistakes. The other thing I do is I go to Google Maps and look at the house right away so I know what I'm dealing with. Like 2 stories, 1 story, does it look like it has a basement? Just to prevent you from making stupid mistakes by, you know, forgetting about this or something like that, right? All right, so we've got how many stories? 3 levels, okay. Okay, and this has a basement, so remember to draw the basement so you don't make stupid mistakes.
So, sorry, that levels includes the basement.
The 3 levels, right?
3 levels includes the basement.
Yeah, it's all right, I misdrew this. Okay, so let's say it's got tiny floors. You know what, I'm gonna start over. So I can do that. Okay, so you've got 2 levels with the basement. Okay, so here's ground. You've got the basement. The basement is a little bit above ground. So this is 1 level. This is 2 levels, and then this is 3 levels. So it's got 2 levels above ground plus a basement. And this is the front door.
Gotcha.
All right, so this is LAG. LAG is 8 point, we're gonna round up to 9 feet. Again, lowest adjacent grade, you know, most people's houses are not on a little flat piece of land, right? The ground goes up, it goes down. So LAG is the lowest adjacent grade. If we go back and look at those building diagrams. All right, they came early on, right? Any second now you get to the diagram. All right. So if you've got a house like this is the lowest adjacent grade. And
That's just kind of like slanted.
again, you know, they've got different kinds of slopes. This is the lowest adjacent grade. So that's where they're measuring from, and that's where the elevation certificate is going to measure from. So again, 9 feet, that corresponds to box C2F. Line C2F on the elevation certificate is 9 feet. So, you know what I could just use the elevation certificate. Well, fine, we'll use this. So when I'm, you know, calculating, trying to estimate where this is relative to sea level, I use a standard basement height of 8 feet or 7 feet. But once you have the elevation certificate, you'll have actual numbers. Okay, so this is 2 feet. We know that from the first floor above ground. You're going to know that from the elevation certificate in a different way. This is 2 feet. If we assume that this is
8.
if that's 8 feet, then we're dealing with 6 feet underground, right? All right, and this is sea level. Okay, so if the ground is at 9 feet and this is 6 feet below ground, this elevation to sea level is 3 feet, right? So, and because it's a house with a basement, you know you have to rate it from the basement floor, not one of the higher floors. So it's at 3 feet above sea level. The base flood elevation is 12 feet above sea level. So this, yeah, so it's at -9. That's where you're gonna rate this house, at -9. So again, it's AE. For now, you have to go to the tables. Let's get the more complicated one. Eventually, you're gonna be able to do this on floodhelpny.org. So for an AE zone, the lowest my tables in this thing go down, this is with basement, let's say there's machinery in the basement. -8 is looking at 5,457.
No machinery?
I think I said with machinery.
Are we all clear on what machinery means?
Yeah.
Okay.
Boiler,
Hot water
ice
heater.
maker.
So you're gonna get 6,000.
Okay.
You're right, it's 6,586.
586.
That's for full coverage, right? But if she wants to reduce her coverage down to like a bare minimum of $60,000 coverage for the building, she can drop it down to 3,000, but still, that's a lot to pay for the coverage. All right. So let's say, one thing she can do, so here she's got a little boiler and a whatnot, right? One thing she can do is raise these things up. Like, so one mitigation option is to raise those things up. Then she drops down to what I initially said at the 5,457, right? All right, so now let's think about filling in her basement. So you fill in her basement, you've just subtracted this space.
It's 6 feet, yeah.
Right, and then you've also made sure that this client installs
Vents.
proper flood vents, because she doesn't get the credit if she doesn't do that. So now she's rated from here.
Right.
And there's something called Crawlspace Loading. Don't even worry about that for now. It's complicated, Crawlspace Loading. But it's gonna increase the premium a little bit, but not so much as people need to. It's not a make or break kind of thing. All right, so then we take, 9 feet plus 2 feet. So this is at 11 feet, right? So her first floor is now 11 feet. Her base flood elevation is 12 feet. So how is she gonna be rated? -1. Okay, so she fills in the basement. She goes to -1 and her life gets a lot better, right? So she's necessarily had to move her mechanicals up, right? So that
To
doesn't-
the top floor. Or the
Yeah.
second floor at least.
So she's got 2 or more floors, and she's at -1, 3,200 for full coverage. If she has to drop down to building only, 2,500, that's probably doable.
And that's with putting the mechanics up top.
Yeah, so she's got, if she's gonna fill in the basement, she's gotta get them out of there anyway.
Absolutely.
So, it's not it's not the kind of dramatic improvement that a home elevation is, but it's probably the difference between affordability and unaffordability for this.
What would you think the cost would be to fill in comparison to lift up?
It's a lot cheaper to fill in,
It's a lot cheaper to fill in.
yeah.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, I've been trying to ask all kind of people to give me an estimate for this, and people won't because there's so many variables.
Right.
But, one company told me 12,000, I've heard other people quoted 30,000 to fill in the basement.
I guess they're going by wherever it's located at as well, and the different variables of what may or may not occur while they're trying to do the filling, or how stable the ground is.
Yeah.
The filling might collapse the house.
And nobody should do that as a do-it-yourself kind of thing,
Oh,
right?
Spray foam.
Yeah,
That's
right.
right.
There are people who I think who've been dumping cement into their basement.
I'm
because
sure they
that's what
have.
people were told to
Really?
do, and it's
sure
not
they
good.
Why don't you have the application of a deductible, the $10,000?
We could talk about deductibles. They don't have materials on deductibles
Yeah,
yet.
okay.
It's in the,
In the manual.
in the next manual, but
Yeah.
you can't, so the deductibles generally range from, $1,000 to $5,000, but FEMA has created this new $10,000 deductible, which can dramatically reduce premiums. It means that your flood insurance doesn't kick in until you've got quite a bit of damage.
Right.
But if it makes affordability, you can do it. The thing is, it's not clear that all mortgage lenders will permit that.
Well, I had a client who used that option because what happened in Sandy is that the damage to her house was about 10,000, and it was all about the mechanicals.
Mhm.
So she raised the mechanicals, okay? So now she feels that she's not going to get significant flood damage in the event of another flood. So with the $10,000 deductible, she has a very, very low premium that is payable. She can meet the requirements to have flood insurance at a very low rate. And the next time there's a flood, she's basically gonna have a wet carpet situation where she will not have any more damage than it takes to pump out some water.
Yeah.
But
So it's
again,
definitely, yeah,
on
it's
the
an
more-
important
The
tool.
lenders are not clear yet on what they're going to do about deductibles, because on standard homeowners, it's usually what, 2,500 is what they max out at? And you can get a $2,500 deductible on your flood policy.
I mean, and reducing coverage is a real thing to think about too, because, you know, I mean, Sandy was a 700-year storm, and again, you can't predict where the waves will be coming from and what time of day and what sort of tides it'll be. But very few people got the max payout of $250,000 despite significant damage. So, you know, if somebody thinks about, okay, with Sandy I had $100,000 in damage, maybe that's what I can live with. If they have a mortgage that's below that, you know, these are decisions.
And they can also put that on now, at the 60 or the 50,000, just to make sure that they have coverage in the event there's another flood, because the requirement's not going to kick in for, you know, 3 years, maybe 4 years. And that, at that point, they will still have a flood policy. Okay, so they'll be having, they'll be grandfathered in hopefully at the rates they have, you know, at the rating tranche, not the rates, but the rating tranche. And so that may be a good way to preserve for the future and deal with it when it comes up. We're also, because we're also negotiating or questioning the flood insurance rates, these 6, 12, and 10, and $16,000 rates. Are they really actuarially sound? And there's serious questions about how refined this rating is. It's pretty gross, actually.
Yeah. So one more thing, and then